Guys, it's Jessica, and today we're gonna talk about trends. Trends are the funniest thing in the world when you start to break them down because, you know, who starts trends? Typically celebrities or famous makeup artists or, you know, designers on the runway. But what is it that makes a trend stick? You know, there'll be some things that like, ooh, not a lot of people get into, but then one of them sticks. So it's kind of funny when you really start to think about trends and where do they originate, and really we're just recycling things year after year, you know. But anyway, I can't, that's a black hole. I gotta get sucked right back out of there because I will go down that for 15 minutes. So today we're gonna talk about trends that I love, that I'm excited, that I've maybe been doing for a while, and so I'm excited that more people are doing them. If I mention a trend that I don't do, that I feel like maybe is kind of going by the wayside, I'm not trying to offend you if you still do them. I will probably still do them. I'm gonna talk about winged liner in a second. I'm still gonna do winged liner from time to time. So it's not like I think it's a ridiculous trend because I love winged liner. Anyway, enough prefacing, let's go ahead and get into it. So the first trend that I'm excited is kind of becoming a thing is just more sheer lightweight coverage on your face. Now, it's not to say that it has to be a glowy thing versus matte. It's more that a lot of us are using less of it. We don't feel like we have to have a caked on thick layer of foundation on our skin. And I feel like a lot of the pictures I'm seeing on Instagram, and I'm trying to be better about this myself, you can see people's freckles and spots, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, obviously, if you've got acne that you're trying to cover up, you can still cover it up. I'm thinking of Samantha Ravindal because she does such an amazing job of covering up what she doesn't want seen without it looking like the thickest layer. Do you know what I'm saying? So there are ways to cover things like that without putting on a 2-inch layer that's 2 millimeter, okay, whatever, a really thick layer of whatever. And that goes for concealer too. Like, I've really scaled it back. I feel, I say that. I know that in recent videos I'm putting a lot on, but when I'm testing something, I really want to see it, you know? But like today, for example, I used the MAC Pro Longwear Concealer, a favorite of mine for years, and I literally took the tiniest amount and warmed it between my fingers and just patted it right here. And I feel like I've got the coverage I need. I don't need a big triangle. I don't need it all the way out here where it's just gonna accentuate my, you know, budding crow's feet. So I just feel like it's more becoming on a lot of us. I was watching Angie from Hot and Flashy, and she was giving her tips for using concealer when you're, you know, maybe, I don't remember what the title was, but when you're much older. And they were great tips for anyone. She was talking about using less and using a primer and not putting foundation there. And they're things that I feel like I've heard, but hearing them all together and seeing how freaking gorgeous she looks for, I know she's like 55, 56. Anyway, regardless, it was a great tip, and so I'm kind of trying to use that myself. One trend that I'm excited is kind of going away are these very angular looks. Now, selfishly, I'm not a makeup artist. I've never claimed to be, I'm not planning to be, and so for me, as just an everyday Joe reviewing makeup, and you know, I've tried a lot, and I feel like those kinds of looks, while they're great to look at on Instagram, I've gotten to the point where if I'm, you know, I follow a lot of makeup hashtags and things, as I'm scrolling through Instagram, if it's an angular look like a cut crease or, you know, really chiseled contour, things like that, I'm scrolling right past it. It's all, so many people do it, and so many people do it really well, that it's just become a blur. It's just literally, and it's funny, Tyler was the one that pointed that out. I was in bed and I was kind of scrolling, and he said, you know what's funny, I was just watching you for like 30 seconds scroll, and he said, you hardly stop at all when it's a makeup look. You pretty much only stop if it's someone you know on Instagram or if it's like a product shot of like skincare. Like, that's true. But it's true, I hadn't realized how immune a lot of us have become to the amazing artistry of those looks. But for every day, you know, unless that's really what you love on yourself, I think a lot of people, it's a lot of work. And yeah, I'm kind of glad that a lot of us are moving away from that. I think there's a place for that, like an editorial. And of course, if you're really good at it and you're sharing that art on Instagram, there's a place for it. But in every day, I don't feel the need to put on that much and do that much work to make it look a certain angular way. In interest of full transparency, I don't think I'm talented enough to even do it on my face anyway, so there you go. Cheers. It also includes like baking, because I feel like people still bake, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with any of these, it's makeup, come on. But I just feel like that ship has kind of sailed, and you know, a lot of people watching videos don't bake. By the way, I'm drinking out of a Titanic mug. It was like a replica of the second class on the Titanic, the White Star Line. I'm fascinated by that whole story. It's so sad. This one is Dewy Skin. It's definitely here. And I feel like, here's what I've realized. When I look at someone that's much older than me, and I think, gosh, they look great for their age, they typically have dewy skin. And I feel like it's because a lot of times, again, powder can catch in certain areas in unflattering ways. It's not to say you can't use powder. Again, thinking of Angie from Hot and Flashy, she'll tell you and she'll show you, you absolutely can, but you just have to be strategic about how much you use, which brand you're using, and where you're putting it. So anyway, I could talk about her all day. I recently discovered her and I'm just like, she is a great resource. If you have more mature skin and you're not following her, you probably are. Let's be real. But if you aren't, I will link her channel below. She is a wealth of knowledge. Oh my gosh. But I feel like dewy skin is different in my head than like a strip of highlight kind of a thing. I know that a lot of people really love that. They love, they put on the highlighter and it's just like boom, boom, boom. Now, again, I use that from time to time, but I like more of a wash where you can just see where the light's hitting and it looks a little bit more natural. You can tell I'm wearing highlight, but it's not like this perfectly angular thing. But I'm a big fan of that and I feel like it's definitely kind of a thing now. Again, as I look through Instagram, the accounts I really like, the skin, like I said, really has that kind of celestial look, but it's not angular. Next one, cooler toned eyeshadows. Now, obviously, they never really went out of style, but the problem was that if you, in the past few years, were looking for a cooler toned eyeshadow palette, they were very hard to find. They still are. And so like if you saw my perfect palette video, I was showing my like 6 ideal eyeshadow shades that I would use every single day. I kind of created the perfect little palette for myself with single shadows. And so many of us own single shadows that you could just pull out and look and create your own palette. I'll link that below. But in it, most of my colors, I think all but one, were cooler toned because I've realized I really like that with my eyes, with the brown eyes. I feel like it makes them pop. And on top of that, it just, I don't know, I think on some people can look really becoming. And I think that warm toned eyeshadows have just been beat to death, Now, obviously I'm still gonna wear warm tones all of the time. I still like warm tones, but it's just to say I'm excited for brands to start coming out with more cooler tone palettes. And the more I've thought about that, it's a little tricky because there are definitely cool tone palettes out there, but they're usually focused around a color. So for example, it might be purple, but all of the tones are like cooler tone purples and blues. And it's like, well, yes, that's cool tone. I'm thinking of like taupes and grays and like shimmers like that. And it is hard to find a palette just centered around that. So you can find them, but it's just, you're also gonna get those colors in them, which nothing wrong with that. But if you don't wear color, it's like, can I just find a neutral cool palette? So that's why I made my own and I love it and it's working great. I feel like that's an exciting trend that I'm sure brands are picking up on, a lot of us talking about, and I'm sure they'll be coming out with some soon because they probably all knew that eventually this warm tone palettes only thing would eventually break. And on that note, I hope it's becoming a trend for us to kind of curate our own palettes because it's like, you can get single shadows and you can pick out the exact ones you like, whether it's ColourPop, whether it's Makeup Geek, whether it's MAC or Makeup Forever, or maybe it's Inglot. Like Inglot, when I was in Dublin last, I made a single palette and again, it's got kind of cooler. I've got this little pink there though, but they have amazing single shadows and you can get all different sizes. So there's so many options to do it. And we're throwing our money at these brands that are making palettes that are good, but if you're looking at a palette and you're only using 4 or 5 of the shades and there are 10 shades in there, it's like, why not just spend that money and make a palette that I love, that's catered to me, the Jessie palette. So the next one that I feel like is exciting, because again, I've really hopped on board, is the cream train. Choo choo. So I feel like a lot of people are embracing cream face products, like cream blushes, cream bronzers, cream highlights, those kinds of things. Cream shadows always been around. I mean, these have all always been around, but I just feel like it took me a while to get used to it. But like I would say about a year ago, I really realized that using a sponge is my best friend, because with the sponge, I can shear out anything. I don't have to worry about those creams sticking in weird places if I'm warming it up, whether I'm warming it up on my hand or I'm warming it up however I want to do it, and then use the sponge to apply it. That has like solved so many problems for me and so many of my fears going into using cream products or like a liquid blush, the Flower Blush Bombs. I talk about them to death because they're unbelievable. I have cream bronzer, highlight, and blush on today, and I just feel like they can, again, really illuminate the skin and make it look dewy and glowy and not powdered, right? And I feel like then I'm suddenly not noticing the texture that I see when I use powder blushes and powder bronzers. Like here, I've got little lines right there forming as I get older. And I feel like if I put too heavy of a powder bronzer, I can really see it, really. But if I'm using a cream bronzer and just kind of tapping it around there, it's so seamless. It's so seamless. So again, I feel like that adds to that glowy look to the skin. Oh boy. Probably my favorite thing is gloss. And I didn't realize how much I'd missed lip gloss until I like hit a wall a year ago. But my lips were chapped for the millionth time. And I'm looking in the mirror at the end of the day and I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? I keep putting on these matte lip products every time I sit down to film, every time we go out to eat or out with friends. And I'm like, and while it might look good from afar, and while it might look good for the first hour to 2 hours, after that, it's uncomfortable. It doesn't look great up close. Like even Tyler will be like, oh, you might want to reapply your lip. And it just looks weird. And I'm like, you know what? Why am I feeling so self-conscious about this? I don't even enjoy wearing it. So ever since I like had that realization, I was like, let me just dive into just regular lipsticks and glosses like I used to use. I felt like my lips, I have not had like super chapped lips in months. Like every once in a while, like I was very sick about a week and a half ago. And I got chapped lips then because I was definitely dehydrated. But beyond that, like I just feel like I'm not suffering from that anymore. And I'm like, what a world, right? So gloss is definitely my favorite. You guys know my Dose of Colors lip gloss. I'm wearing one right now. I can link below the exact one. My favorite lip gloss formula ever. It's got a little bit of color, but it's glossy, it's comfortable, it doesn't wear off weird. Like, they are so good. I'm just kind of excited to kiss matte lips goodbye for a while and just embrace the gloss because it's really, I don't feel self-conscious. I can go out in public and I just feel like, again, it kind of goes with that glowy wash on your face, but I feel like it fits in with that whole aesthetic and it's comfortable. So, liner. I've really, in the past few weeks, moved away from winged liner. Now, again, please. I feel like for years I did winged liner, not really like true winged, but more like a little baby wing. And I'm still gonna do that. But I just feel like I've learned to embrace more of my natural eye shape and just kind of tight lining between the lashes. I'll usually thicken it just a little bit on top so that it makes my natural lashes look a little bit thicker at the base. And I'll do a little bit on the waterline on the bottom sometimes. But beyond that, I'm just kind of embracing just using a pencil liner. Because for the longest time, I was doing a pencil liner to tight line. Then I would grab a gel or cream liner to really fill in a thick line on top. And then I would grab a liquid liner to help clean it up, to make the wing and make that look really sharp. And I'm like, while I do love that look, and I'm still gonna do it for sure, I know that for every day, it just doesn't make sense. It's way more work. I actually quite like the way my eyes look without it. And I think it's just taken me a while to realize that, to just kind of embrace my eye shape and not feel like I have to have this really thick black line on top, you know. Another one is wearing less eyeshadow. I feel like lately a lot of people are opting for just like, maybe like I literally took my highlighter and put it all over my eyelid. And then I took a little bit of bronzer, like powder bronzer, and quickly threw it into the lid, but it was like a very light wash. And then I took the same bronzer on my lower lash line. I feel like so many people are just doing less eyeshadow. And I love that because while, yeah, my job is to review makeup and review eyeshadows, but I thought, you know, if you're putting it on just because you think you're supposed to, but like I feel like some of the time I'll do eyeshadow and look and I'm like, sometimes I don't like the way I look with eyeshadow. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'll do a look and I love it, but a lot of times when I've just got a really simple eye on like this, I'm like, I like that. I feel like it emphasizes, again, the shape of my eye, and I can really see my lashes, and it's just a little bit more natural. Now, again, it's not to say I'm not gonna keep using eyeshadow. It's just, it's nice to take a break from that from time to time, and I think it can still look really pretty and put together without really spending much time at all. As I was making this list this morning, I had a realization. I'm reading through every single one and I thought, almost all of these are pointing to the idea that you're comfortable in your own skin. I think we all crave simplicity. I think we really do. And, you know, if you have a lot in your life, if you're blessed to own more than what you need and to, you know, if you really want something, you can possibly get it, you're blessed because most of the world is not lucky enough. So that's something to always keep in check. But even within that, I think we still crave a very simple life. That's why minimalism is huge. That's why decluttering is huge. That's why, you know, people, it's such a trend to do project pans and no buys and all of this stuff, because it's like, we do want less and we want to use and love what we already own. But we live in a world where we're constantly bombarded with new stuff. I'm a part of it. I'm, in the weirdest way, a part of the problem. I'm reviewing makeup because I want to share with you guys what's new out there, what I think about it. Should you spend your money? Should you not? And I'm trying to help you spend your money in wise ways if you're looking for something particular. But I also know that I'm a part of the problem. Obviously, I'm part of that bombardment of new things that are out there. So I try to keep a really level head about these and not just say that everything's pretty good, because I feel like there are YouTube accounts, YouTubers I really like, but that everything's kind of good to them. And I watch their videos and I really might like their aesthetic and the whole feel, but seemingly pretty much everything they try, they're like, yeah, I love this, or I really, really like it. I'm like, well, then what do you not like? You know what I mean? That's weird to me, because I'm like, if you have this as your job, you should be discerning and you should be able to say, I don't like this because, but this person might. Or, you know what I'm saying? Because anyway, I'm derailing myself here. Focus, Jessica. But I guess what I'm saying is I'm excited that a lot of us are moving towards embracing what we actually have, our skin. So, you know, thinking about what I did today, I tried to do as many of these trends as I could. I used mostly cream products. I used less eyeshadow. I used more of a dewy look for like my foundation. It was really mostly BB cream with a little splash of foundation. And you know, just thinking about all of these trends really pointing to embracing the skin we have and being okay with some of our imperfections and being okay with showing more of your eye shape and more of your skin and letting freckles show through. I think that's so cool and so powerful, and it's about darn time. It really is about time, because I feel like for years, you know, especially when I first started out, I would watch YouTubers and I'd think, they look perfect. I mean, like unbelievably perfect. And while it's pleasing to look at, I also know that there's a part of me that doesn't like watching it, because I'm like, well, that's not something I can achieve. And if I did, I know what it would look like in person. And I think that that is stifling. It stifles your skin. And I feel like, you know, the times I've worn full thick makeup, like to work, for example, my teacher friends, I would get looks, especially when I first started teaching. I feel like I would get looks from people like, ooh, she's wearing a lot of makeup. And in lighting, in a real job space, most of the lighting is awful. So you're seeing all the texture. And it breaks my heart too, because my skin was even better back then. You know, it was younger. There were less lines. There were less, you know, fine lines. And I'm like, oh, if only I'd embraced it then. So, okay, I gotta stop because I could go on for a long time. But I hope this video was fun. You guys know how I get. I know. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this was maybe just food for thought. Maybe all it was food for thought for you to think about. Maybe try the opposite. See if you like it, because you might be surprised. You just might be surprised. So if you'd be interested, by the way, I'd love to do like a cream, all cream makeup look. I know, like I said, a lot of people are talking about creams more online, and I certainly have developed my own kind of tips and tricks that I use to make them work for me. And I'd love to share those with you guys. So if you'd be interested in that, let me know. I have a mix of drugstore and high-end of cream products that I really like. I'd love to dabble more in drugstore, so before I even film that video. So if you have any drugstore cream face product recommendations, let me know below. I'd love to pick them up and give them a try as well. I hope you'll subscribe before you leave. Definitely come say hi to me on social media. It's JamBeauty89 everywhere. And other than that, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.